This short video presentation is on instructional strategies and how an educator can make lectures interactive. Hi ladies, I have had such a dreadful day. I am finding my students bored out of their minds during my lectures. Can you please give me some suggestions?
I know the feeling, Julie. Lectures are an instructor-centered teaching method and learning for the students can be passive.
Yes, lectures can sometimes decrease the student's attention span, especially if the instructor babbles on for hours. I had the same problem when I first started teaching. There was so much content to cover with such little time. Let me ask you something, Julie. Are you standing in front of the class and talking for the entire lesson?
Well, yes I am.
I'm sorry to say, Julie, but that is your number one problem. Research suggests that students lose interest after listening for 40 minutes.
And Julie, did you know that majority of the lecture content is rapidly forgotten if the students are bored?
Oh my gosh! I am doing everything wrong. I know that you have stated all the limitations of a lecture. But how do I make it interesting?
Well, why don't you try something called interactive lectures? This involves a two-way interaction between you and your students.
Just remember, you must prepare the students for their role in this type of lecturing. Students generally are passive participants.
Yes, Susan is right. You must set the guidelines at the beginning of the class and outline your lecture and how the lesson will be conducted.
Once you have outlined your lesson, the students will be aware that they had to actively participate within the learning process. Their role is to be active, not passive learners.
Wow! I had no idea this concept existed. Please tell me more.
Some say that interactive lectures increase discussion among the class, but this does not mean that the students do all of the talking.
Yes, right. This implies active involvement and participation by your students. This way the students are no longer passive in the learning process.
I really like what I am hearing. Interactive lectures will keep my students engaged throughout the entire lecture.
Interactive lecturing involves interaction between all parties in the content. It promotes learning and increases motivation and satisfaction for the students and the instructor.
Okay, this information is motivating me to teach. So what techniques can I use when I am lecturing to increase student participation?
There are numerous ways a lecture can be interactive. For instance, I personally start with lecturing for about 30 to 40 minutes and introduce the content to the students. After I have introduced the main content, I break my students into small groups of 3 or 4. And assign each group a topic which needs to be discussed.
Grouping the students with a topic promotes discussion, ideas and new concepts. Once the students are finished researching their topics, they present to the class as a group.
Group discussions increases collaboration among students and allows them to teach each other. This allows them to become self-directed learners, which is usually my goal.
Okay, so during these group discussions, what am I doing?
This is a great time for you to assess your students. You will be able to assess their understanding, their attitudes towards the topic and their beliefs on the content.
Once you initiate group work into your lectures, the traditional lecture will seem very silent.
Are there any other techniques I can use within interactive lectures?
Yes, there are multiple other techniques. Another one is called questioning the students.
I love this technique of questioning the students, as it is the easiest to implement.
This technique stimulates interest, arouses attention, and can also serve as an icebreaker. I will usually open my lecture with a broad question to get my students' attention.
Like I said before, questioning the students can be great, but you must be careful to not come off as intimidating.
Yes, that is correct. You must wait at least 3 to 5 seconds for a response. This time allows the students to think and formulate a response.
Use the questioning technique throughout the lecture. This will motivate the students to pay attention because they will not know when they could be questioned.
Yes, that is correct. Also, make sure that you leave at least 10 minutes at the end of the lecture for student questioning. This will clear any misunderstanding of the content.
You both have been so helpful. Please tell me more.
Well, to further increase interaction, I will use lots of visuals in my PowerPoint slides. Visuals can help trigger discussions or can stimulate student thinking.
I like to include short films ranging from 5 to 8 minutes to promote further inquiry on content, and I can ask the students to self-reflect on the short film.
Yes, adding short films can definitely allow students to interact with one another and discuss the content.
There are so many visuals you can use within a lecture, such as flip charts or the whiteboard, and encourage the students to use these tools during class presentations.
I have one more technique to share with you, Julie. It involves the use of clinical cases. I find real-life cases can bring relevance and discussion among the students.
Wow! I never thought of that. That's great to know. Tell me more on how this will be effective during lectures.
Well, I will usually give the students a case scenario on paper which is related to the content being discussed. Then, I usually give them time to go over the case scenario.
This time allows the students to analyze the points in the case scenario, which again can leave room for another class discussion. Yes, this works well when you are trying to explain a topic and the students are able to relate to the scenario and further discuss their understanding. Wow! You both have given me such great ideas to take my lecture to the next level. Have you two ever brought in guest speakers? Yes, Julie. That's a great idea. This is an amazing tactic as it heightens student interest and motivation. Guest speakers also allow for student interaction and also allows for questioning, and this in return keeps the students motivated.
Okay. So I understand my role as the instructor is to become more of a facilitator or a coach, rather than that boring teacher in front of the class.
That's right, Julie. But remember, you must modify the lecture content to allow for discussion and try one technique at a time so you do not get overwhelmed in the beginning.
Of course.
Another thing to keep in mind is that you must use effective presentation skills like keeping eye contact with your students. Otherwise, the lecture will not be interactive.
Make sure you rearrange this classroom so the desks are in a circle pattern. This allows everyone to see each other and will keep the students focused during the lecture.
These are some of the best practices we use during our lectures to keep our students engaged and interactive. Interactive lectures promotes effective learning by active involvement, increased attention and motivation, and increased student and teacher satisfaction.
You two have been so helpful. But I do have one more question. How do you deal with any ethical, cultural or gender implications within this amazing strategy?
Just make sure you don't use the same techniques all the time. Make use of all the different instructional strategies out there. Just remember to mix things up.
Yes, Grace is correct. Use a variety of techniques. This will stimulate your students to actively participate in each lesson.
Thank you, Grace and Susan. You have been such great assistants. I am so glad I spoke to you today. I will start with interactive lecturing with tomorrow's class. That's it for the short video. I hope you can take away some important interactive techniques to use during your lectures. Thank you for watching.